All right, so welcome to IASG. Today we're going to be having a presentation from Logan on Metasploit, and then after beginner's night from Logan on Nmap. Announcements, so I put out a doodle. If you haven't seen it already, it's in general on Slack regarding NSA Codebreaker like work session. I guess I shouldn't call it a work session, but fun session Saturday. So if you haven't gone on and inputted your times for Saturday and Sunday, you should do that if you want to come, because after this meeting I'll be looking at what times work best for everybody and then picking a time, and then we'll just go with that. So it's looking like Sunday is winning in terms of people's availability, but I will let you know for sure what time after the meeting in Slack. So, and I'll send out an email. Other items, Logan, I don't know if you want to, you said the swag stuff is closed?
Yep.
Okay.
So at the end of the meeting today, the submissions for swag will close. So we
okay.
have until the end to get those in, and then sometime either tonight or tomorrow, we will put out a poll and you can vote for what you want to actually wear around campus.
And then I think that might be it. Just to say again, so you guys have on your radar, the cabinet is working on a Halloween Capture the Flag event. So we planned it out, and we have what we think is a pretty interesting CTF, completely free, obviously, for the club. And anybody else, you know, if you have friends that haven't been to the club, you can absolutely bring them along. It's on Halloween, October 31st on a Tuesday, so same meeting time. I'll announce more details as we get closer, but there should be something for everybody of all different skill levels. And of course, it'll have some Halloween fun in there, and we'll have candy and stuff like that. But yeah, more details on that. Just keep that on your radar, let your friends know, and all that good stuff. Any cabinet have anything to say real quick? No? Okay, so I'll hand it over to Logan then.
Alrighty, so how many of you are familiar with Metasploit? About half. So for those of you that don't know, Metasploit is a penetration testing framework. Here is the official explanation from Rapid7, the people who own and make Metasploit. So a little bit of history about the software. It was created in 2003 by H.D. Moore. It was originally written in Perl. Yeah, it was originally written in Perl because he was sick and tired of typing out the same exploits again and again. When he first launched it, there were 11 exploits. As it went through, it was completely rewritten later on in Ruby, which is what you'll see now. The current version, 4.14.1, has 1,600 exploits compared to the original 11. So that's a pretty sizable upgrade. So just kind of a quick overview of what Metasploit really is. Metasploit is a tool. Metasploit is not the only tool. It's an excellent way to help you penetration test, but if you rely only on Metasploit, you're going to miss a lot of important things. Metasploit is very powerful. It is a great way to do your penetration testing. It's a great way to do most of the steps all in one solid location. It's not magical. There isn't a magic command where you just say hack all the things and it hacks all the things and plays dual core for you. It is considerably quicker than typing out all of the commands by hand, manually inputting all of the code required to break something. It's not that quick. So if you want to go ahead and get it, here are some places you can get it. 2 download links. It's also included in Kali, which is distributed by Offensive Security. And if you just want to play around with it a little bit, we have an Ice Lab environment. There's a link up there to it. So you can go ahead and go in there. A great way to learn is just kind of to type a command and then put help after it, because the best way to learn is just to do it. So if you want to, during this talk, go ahead and go into that IceLab environment. And then just as I mentioned things, seriously just typing whatever I say followed by help. A lot of times will give you a lot of useful information. And then there are other boxes in the environment right now that you're more than welcome to attack with Metasploit. So here are the official steps of a penetration test according to the pen test standard people. Metasploit can't really help you with the first one, where you just you go and you talk to the company you're penetration testing. Metasploit's really only useful from 2 on. Step 2, information or intelligence gathering. This is where all of your scanning and stuff will take place. Just what ports are open, who's talking to who. Step 3, threat modeling. This is where you'll take the information you get from your initial scans, and you'll start to sort of look at what say CVEs are out there for those services that you'll see. Step 4, you'll kind of create a more solid plan, kind of what exploits you want to use, what your end goal is, how you want to, say, get to root from starting with SMB. 5 is the fun one. This is where you actually type the word exploit and hit enter and try to break things. 6, post-exploitation. Best summed up as do evil, but not too much. This is where you start to actually try to do things on the system once you're in. In the sense of penetration testing, your objective is not actually to do much evil, but to show what could be done by a malicious hacker. And then step 7 is what really differentiates a penetration test between just some jerk hacking you, is reporting, telling people how you got in, what you found, what you could do, and what they can do to stop it from happening again. So in Metasploit, to help you do all of these things, there are a couple of basic things that you'll see again and again. The first one is exploits. These are the list of modules that Metasploit keeps that are how you actually get into a system. These exploits are generally divided by operating system, and then sort of by type, and then individual exploits. You can see sort of a rough command up there of what you might type. Then you have your payloads. These are what you would serve with your exploit. A very common one is Preter. It's sort of an advanced shell that helps you navigate through the system more efficiently. We'll talk a little bit more about that one later. Then there are auxiliary modules. These are things like Nmap. They're not necessarily exploits, but they are very useful tools. And then you have encoders. There's really only one that's used super regularly, and that's MSF Venom. These are used to sort of hide your signature from your malicious code. This is how you get around antivirus and other malware detection software. So then some basic commands you'll use. Search. This is how you find relevant things. You can search exploits, you can search operating systems, and you can divide your search more and more specific. You can sort by, you know, what year was this released? What machines will it target? What protocols will it target? Use. This is how you tell Metasploit what you want to use. This is where you will choose an exploit, where you will equip a payload. This is how Metasploit knows what to do when you hit enter. Show options. So after you click or after you type use and your exploit or payload, showing options will then tell you what you need to change. These are things like your localhost address, the port where you have your Metasploit handlers set up to receive the incoming shells. These should only be used for things that you'll use all the time and will change very rarely. And then you have save. What save does is it actually will save those global variables so that the next time you load up Metasploit, those are already set. This is useful if you're running on the same machine on the same network again and again. Exploit is exactly what it says. If you type exploit or run, Metasploit will execute whatever you have it queued up to run against whatever machine you told it to run it against. And there's a link to a very useful cheat sheet I found a while back. It's got a lot of useful commands from Metasploit, Meterpreter, MSF Venom. It's a really nice resource just to kind of hang on your wall. So talking about Meterpreter briefly, Meterpreter is a command line. It's DLL injected, so it lives in memory. It doesn't leave a footprint on the hard drive. You can migrate it to live behind other processes. It's fairly common to have your Meterpreter, have your Meterpreter run behind Explorer.exe on Windows systems, because Explorer.exe is always running. If you see that Meterpreter.exe is running, you might think something is up. If you see that Explorer.exe is running, you think, good, my computer's working like it should. There's a lot of really useful commands. A couple of them are up there. Persistence creates a persistent Meterpreter shell so that it opens whenever they boot their computer. KillAV is a really fun one. It does its best to disable antivirus, so then you can sort of do as you like without worrying. Meterpreter is very powerful. There are a lot of commands. Some of them are very useful. Some of them were probably used by one guy once, and so they got included. Really, the best way to do that is just to read the docs and learn what all Meterpreter can do, because you can do a full presentation just on all the options Meterpreter has. So, just going to walk through kind of a sample attack of what you might see. The victim box here is Metasploitable 1, which is a box that Rapid7 put out a while ago to test Metasploit, really to help people learn it. There is a newer version, Metasploitable 2, but I did Metasploitable 1 because I don't feel bad about giving you guys spoilers because it's really old. So the first thing you'll usually do is an Nmap scan. It's pretty useful. So here's the dump out of an Nmap scan against a Metasploitable box. So if we just kind of focus on what ports are open, this is kind of where you'll see most of your useful information. The one I really want to focus on here is port 445, which is where SMB lives. SMB is a protocol that over the years has had a lot of errors, or a lot of issues. And so we can look and see that it's running SMB 3 point something. So now if we go and we search, we go online and we search in the exploit database that Rapid7 has, we search for Samba 3.1 or 3.0.20, sorry, which was the full version of SMB it was running. We'll see that there was a CVE for it, and it gives us a script to run. If you go to the actual web page, there's a link to actually download the Metasploit module associated with this in case for some reason you don't have it. So then we go back to Metasploit, and so we're going to go through all the commands that we've talked about already. So first we tell it that we want to use that. We say we want to use usermap script, which is an exploit that will attempt to inject you before SMB authenticates, let you in to run commands, and if it works, you effectively have root immediately because it never authenticates and just gives you a shell. So then we set our localhost to the local machine address so that it knows where to send that shell once it's initiated, and then we hit exploit. And as you can see in this case, it was successful. That's not always the case. A lot of times you'll hit enter on an exploit and it'll fail. And the only thing you can do then is try again. Change a variable, use a different exploit, maybe throw it through an encoder. Anything you can do to try and change it up so that you can break it. And sometimes, even though it might seem like a vulnerable service, it's not, and your best option is just to switch attack vectors. If we were to go back to this, we can see that there's also SQL running. That might be open to some injections. There's an Apache Tomcat server. Sometimes you can have fun with those. So there's all of these different ports that offer us potential vectors. If one of them doesn't work, just go try another one. So this talk was not very in-depth, and it was incredibly short, and I apologize for that. But here are some excellent resources to go read more. The two that I personally have used and found to be the most useful are the Metasploit Unleashed course put out by Offensive Security, the people who make Kali, and the book at the bottom, Metasploit Unleashed. I've been reading that on the side ride this semester because it's a useful thing to do in the 10 minutes I spent on the bus. So yeah, those are some great places to learn. One thing I did want to include that I forgot to, and I apologize for that as well. I'll put that in before I upload the slides. There is, if you're not a fan of command lines, which I know a lot of people aren't, there is a way to sort of get rid of that, and that's a program called Armitage. Armitage is included in Kali Linux, and it runs off of the Metasploit framework. But what it does is it provides you with a semi-graphical environment, we'll call it. It does a lot of the work for you. You just type scan, or hit scan, it runs through, reads all the hosts on your network, and then it immediately presents you with potential attack vectors. You can refine that further, and it's very easy to just run attacks. It also has this wonderful option called Hail Mary that almost never works, but if it's a really old box and you're really desperate, it might be a possible vector. So, are there any questions? All right.
Okay. Yeah, now I guess we'll go into the beginners. What? Do you want to do puzzle now? Okay. Yeah. If you want to go ahead and do puzzle, that'd be.
Solution to last week's.
Imagine it was funny to slide it.
Alright, so last week's puzzle we had 3 solutions from, I believe, Derek, Nathan, and Lucas, so I'll reach out to you 3. This one was again an audio file. Similar to last week's. The one before that was, I started with an audio file and then I added the flag into it. This one, I started with the flag and I converted it to an audio file. So you can play this audio file as well. It works, but it's not really useful. It's kind of garbage, but that's because you want to view it as an image, I guess. But it's not an image, it's not a file. So kind of the way to get back to it is when you open your file in a program called Audacity, open it up, and then you want to just click this drop down arrow and hit spectrogram, and there it is. Pretty quick one. Any questions about this one?